listener production.
Hey, Tara Cassidy with you and welcome to The Briefing. Imagine if The Cheap Seats, Have You Been Paying Attention or Spicks and Specks was cancelled because of our PM. Well, that's allegedly what happened with The Late Show, hosted by Stephen Colbert, even though it's maintained its spot as America's #1 most watched late night program.
I think it feels like it's the first domino in late night television to fall. So I think there's a lot of fans of late nights that feel that this could be the start of the end of their, favorite form of television.
So how did this happen and why has Trump said Jimmy Kimmel is next? That's coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, let's get into the headlines with Helen Smith. It's Friday the 25th of July. Good morning, Tara, and to you listening. We're starting this morning in the US, where Ghislaine Maxwell, the longtime accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein, is meeting with a US Department of Justice official right now to discuss if there are any others who Epstein helped to sexually abuse underage girls. The talks have been arranged following uproar over the Trump administration's refusal to release the Epstein files and their denial that a client list exists. Earlier this week, the FBI and DOJ released a joint statement saying if Maxwell had any further information about others who committed crimes along Epstein, they'll hear what she has to say. And according to Maxwell's lawyers, she says she's looking forward to the meeting, which could actually lead to her testifying before Congress. Now, news of that meeting comes just 24 hours after reports came to light that Donald Trump was apparently told that his name was on the Epstein files multiple times, including by Attorney General Pam Bondi and her deputy. Various reputable US outlets, including the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, have reported that. Now, Pam Bondi and the Trump administration have since rejected the claim, labelling it fake news. Yeah, and it's important to note, though, that simply being listed in these files doesn't outright mean Trump has carried out any wrongdoing or crimes, as it's well known they were friends and associated over the years, but he has denied it, as well as that any client list exists. So it would prove dishonesty at least, and it'll be up to the FBI to determine if there's anything further to investigate. Interestingly, Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, has come out amid all of this saying the DOJ needs to ask Maxwell what his brother had on the US president, saying, quote, "I don't know what it was, but years ago he said he had dirt on Trump." Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year sentence in Florida for sex trafficking.
The legendary Hulk Hogan is a heartbeat away.
It's another sad day after the death of a second star this week. WWE athlete and actor Hulk Hogan has died aged 71 after suffering a cardiac arrest at his Florida home. Hulk Hogan, whose real name is Terry Jean Bollea, died surrounded by his family and had reportedly been unwell, having undergone a number of surgeries in recent weeks. Now, Hulk shot to stardom in the 80s, becoming one of wrestling's most popular characters, known for his tight yellow and red lycra wrestling suit and bandana, his bleach blonde hair and handlebar mow, and of course, his theatrics in the ring.
Have you seen the fear in all those little hulksters? They realize that when I get Andre the Giant cinched up in the launch position, when I slam him through the Trump Plaza, brother, from New York down to Tampa, Florida, the fault line is going to break off.
He's become a household name known across generations, having transformed pro wrestling into home entertainment watched by millions. He won the WWE Championship 6 times with a match against 236-kilo Andre the Giant, one of the most well-known of his career, and it was watched by over 28 million viewers and is still the largest in North American history.
The greatest professional athlete in the world today. Look at this. He's slammed it. I don't believe it. Over for the cover. It's over. Unbelievable.
Later in life, he went on to have a successful acting career spanning decades, featuring in films like Rocky III, A-Team, Baywatch, Gremlins 2 and Muppets from Space, and was the most requested Make-A-Wish Foundation celebrity during his time.
Yeah, and he also had his own reality TV show, Hogan Knows Best, and more recently had become a prominent figure in the MAGA movement, even starring in Trump's 2024 campaign, where he ripped his shirt off WWE style to show a Trump shirt underneath.
When they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
Now, tributes have been pouring out from across the globe this morning, with the WWE releasing a statement saying it's saddened to learn WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan has passed away. One of pop culture's most recognisable figures, Hogan helped WWE achieve global recognition in the 80s, and it extends its condolences to the Hogan family, friends and fans.
The Commissioner of the UN's aid agency says a colleague described people in Gaza as neither dead nor alive. They are walking corpses as fears of mass starvation grow. It comes as the UN says there are 6,000 trucks carrying food and aid waiting to enter Gaza, and over 100 aid organisations in 28 nations, including Australia, are calling for Israel to increase the flow of aid into the Palestinian enclave.
And according to the UN's Palestinian Refugee Agency, 1 in 5 children in Gaza are malnourished, with cases increasing every day. Now, the Commissioner says the deepening crisis is affecting everyone, including those trying to save lives in the war-torn enclave, including frontline health workers who are surviving on one small meal a day, often just lentils, if at all. And this week, the head of the World Health Organization has also said that the situation in Gaza could only be described as man-made mass starvation from over 80 days of blockage, with only small openings of aid, but it's not enough.
The 2.1 million people trapped in the war zone that is Gaza are facing yet another killer on top of bombs and bullets: starvation.
In response, Israel, who controls the entry of all supplies into Gaza, says there's no siege and blames Hamas for any cases of malnutrition. There have also been reports that journalists and aid workers are among those unable to access food, with some outlets saying that they are trying to remove staff from the area but are not able to do so. These are including staff from some of the biggest news outlets like the BBC, who have voiced concerns over the situation in Gaza, warning that their staff are increasingly unable to feed themselves and their family.
Yeah, that's right. And international reporters have also actually been barred by Israel from entering the Strip. Palestinian journalists have been the only ones able to report from the ground in the war zone. And separate to that, we also know there's been countless deaths of journalists. It is the deadliest conflict for media and journalists in recent history.
5 women who were subjected to invasive strip searches at Doha Airport before a Sydney-bound flight have won the right to sue Qatar Airways and the airport operator Qatar. In 2020, over a dozen women were taken off a Qatar Airways flight to Sydney and allegedly forced to undergo physical examinations in an ambulance on the tarmac without consent, and they were checked for whether they had given birth. This is because a newborn baby was found in a toilet cubicle at the Hamad International Airport.
And one of the women who was strip searched said they were ordered off the plane into an ambulance with a nurse and told to pull off their pants for a vagina examination, and that when she refused, the nurse kept saying, "We need to see it, we need to see it."
We was greeted by gun-wielding police officers. There was so much tension in the air and it was very, very intimidating.
We thought we've been kidnapped and we're going to be held hostages.
That audio from the BBC. And the women first hoped to sue Qatar Airways for damages over unlawful physical contact and the Qatar Civil Aviation Authority, as well as the airport operations company Qatar, for assault and false imprisonment. Now, initially, the Federal Court Justice John Hanley dismissed the case against the airline and the Qatar Civil Aviation Authority, finding that the alleged assaults did not happen on board the Qatar Airways plane and were not conducted by any employee employee of the airline.
But Justice Halley has now backtracked, saying it was wrong when he dismissed the woman's claims, confirming that what happened to the women in the ambulance could not have happened without the involvement of Qatar Airways and the airport operator Qatar, who have both been ordered to pay the costs of the appeal. However, the full federal court has dismissed the women's appeal against the Qatar Civil Aviation Authority. Instead, the case will go ahead against Qatar and the airport operator.
And we want to again finish this week with you guys, our listeners. We chucked a few questions in our broadcast channel behind the briefing this week, and we wanted to get your answers. The first question we asked you was whether you think 16-year-olds are old enough to vote after news the UK is lowering their voting age. And about 30% of you said no, you don't think so, while the rest of you, nearly 70%, said yes. Wow, that is interesting because I was one of the people that actually said no to that initially, but after my chat with Lizzie from Build a Ballot, I've changed my tune, Helen.
Yeah, I'm for the yes as well. Now, the other question we asked you was whether you think Mark Latham, he's the MP who's been accused of abuse and misconduct, should have his portrait removed from Parliament's caucus room. And this is after the PM said it would be staying up and not being removed, as he didn't want to rewrite history, but instead a sign would be added denouncing him. So 20% of you said yes, you think the photo should get taken down. Nearly 60% of you said adding the sign is enough, while a small portion of you reckon no, just leave it up there, or you just didn't care.
And finally, Uber, those pesky Uber drivers who cancel trips. We wanted to hear your stories after the news a blind woman with an assistance dog is taking Uber to court after constantly having her trips cancelled. And it sounds like you guys have got your own horror stories too. Listener Elise says, yes, it's happened to her. She scheduled an Uber the night before purposely so she could get to the airport on time for an early flight and it cancelled. Feel ya, Elise, that has happened to me too.
And Chrissy said she reckons Uber has other issues and she thinks she's actually gotten a lower rating from not wanting to engage in convos with the drivers, which is pretty brutal. And Sass says, yep, they've had multiple cancellations and it's a regular thing, and wonders if this is a way to try and surge prices. Which is a great question because price surges are definitely a thing when it comes to ride shares. So that's definitely something we could look into.
Yeah, lots of issues going on, Uber. Time to get on top of this. Now, that brings our headlines to a close for today and for the week. But coming up next is your deep dive, Helen, on the same topic that even South Park has led their latest season with, which means you know it's going to be spicy. The cancellation of the most watched late night show in the US that's got lawsuits and even the US president involved. Stick around for that up next.
I used to think the biggest risk of being a late night host was telling a bad joke and being met with silence from the audience. Turns out I was wrong. The real risk is suddenly realizing the guy next door telling jokes just got fired, and now you're the next turkey waiting for slaughter. Stephen, I love you.
Are we witnessing the death of late night shows in the US?
Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May. And yeah, I share your feelings. It's not just the end of our show, but it's the end of The Late Show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away.
That was Stephen Colbert, host of The Late Night Show on CBS, and it's the highest watched late night show in the US, so why is it ending? The timing of the decision has got people talking. Colbert delivered a monologue on Monday local time criticising CBS's parent company Paramount for reaching a US $16 million settlement with President Donald Trump after Trump accused 60 Minutes of editing an interview with Kamala Harris to mislead voters during the presidential election. In the episode, Colbert said he was offended by the settlement and joked that the technical name in legal circles for the deal was a big fat bribe. Days later came the announcement the show was ending. Then President Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social, "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings," adding, "I hear Jimmy Kimmel is next." And of course, Colbert responded, along with The Daily Show's Jon Stewart.
Would an untalented man be able to compose the following satirical witticism? Go f*** yourself.
Now, CBS executives said the cancellation of Colbert's show is not related in any way to the show's performance, context, or other matters happening at Paramount. John Snyder is a late-night TV expert and host of Saturday Night Network and is in New York. John, why has the top-rated late-night talk show in the US been cancelled?
It's so crazy, isn't it, to think about? Because in a headline, it sounds like convoluted that it would be canceled. But there's so many ways that late night defines success at this point beyond just linear television ratings. And because of that, it's not so simple to simply say that it is the top rated show in late night. There's other things that factor in, like social views and finances, certainly how expensive these shows get, politics. There's a lot of conversation about that right now. So it's not just one factor that determines whether these shows end up staying on the air or not.
So what has the reaction been like on the ground in New York? Why has this decision by CBS come at such a shock?
I think it feels like it's the first domino in late night television to fall. So I think there's a lot of fans of late night that feel that this could be the start of the end of their, favorite form of television. So that's a factor. Probably the biggest reason why this is such a shock is that there's a sale that is on its way for CBS, which is owned by Paramount, and they are being sold. And the president of the United States has a lot to do with that sale going through or not, and the people buying it. So without getting into all the different complications there, it's definitely a political thing where the left-leaning faction, which includes Stephen Colbert, certainly feels that this is something that was influenced by the right. And then once America is very well known for, being the land of free speech. And once a government comes in and has any small amount of influence on people's right to make comedy or speak in that form, it really is a changing of the guard. And it's a changing of the way that that America runs. And I think that's been really hard for a lot of people to see that there might be some political influence to why Colbert Show was canceled.
Yeah, and on the back of that, some fellow late night hosts have lined up to defend Colbert, calling out Paramount, which you just said is CBS's parent company, for trying to censor and control its hosts. Why has this created such a political firestorm? Is it that aspect of free speech?
I think certainly that's a major part. I think that there's more of a brotherhood in late night than there's ever been before. In the days of Leno and Letterman, it's been well documented that they weren't buddy-buddy the way that all of the late night hosts are now. During a strike a couple of years ago, all of the late night hosts made a podcast together. I mean, that's something that was unheard of in late night when there was, the late night wars going on throughout many decades. So it's just a different landscape right now. And I think that the late night hosts, despite competing for eyeballs at the same time on different networks, feel that they want to stand up for their brothers in late night who, though Colbert is the first one to fall, they could be next. And I think it's important for them to say their piece while they still can.
Yeah, and we'll get to a comment that Trump said about Kimmel being next a bit later, but I want to get your thoughts. Do you think this is just a once-off decision or a broader shift that we are going to see more changes like this happen?
It's hard to say. CBS came out with a press release and said that the decision was purely financial, that Colbert Show was losing about $40 million a year. And, it was reported that they were losing $40 million a year. We don't know how long that's been going on for. But the reporting certainly justifies that there's some financial implication here. And if that's the case, and all late night shows are losing money, at a certain point, you have to think that the dam's going to break, regardless of politics. Because when the show started, they were selling ad revenue for a lot more than what they're selling now because there's less people watching TV all in one spot. And a lot of the people who work on these shows have worked there for 10 years, 15 years, depending on the show, and they become lifers and all of their salaries go up every single year. So the costs become more expensive to produce these shows and they're bringing in less. So no matter what business you were running, you would start to question whether it's worth doing this or not. And I think that's an indication that this is something we could see in the future. But I guess it's just perspective, right? CBS and Paramount clearly feel like they don't want to be in the business of late night television anymore, but NBC Universal might feel differently.
Yeah, and the timing of the cancellation has obviously got people talking. Colbert's monologue that he delivered on the show towards the start of the week was criticising CBS's parent company for reaching this $16 million settlement with President Trump. Why do you think people have glued to that monologue and been like, this is the reason?
I think, whenever you leave somebody in place knowing that they're on their way out, like, imagine you were working at a company and they fire you, but they say like, okay, but you can stick around for 10 more months. Like, I don't think you're going to be as efficient as you were before, or like care as much for holding back. And that's Colbert's thing right now, is like, he's going to go all out and he's not willing to hold back for the next 10 months. And I think that's really exciting for people who enjoy his show and like him to get to see how they're going to move forward. And just this week, Colbert had a lot of the late night hosts on his show, and they did a great bit making fun of the Kiss Cam at the Coldplay concert. So like, that was to me one of the best bits in late night that we've had in years. And I'm very excited to see what Colbert is going to do moving forward.
After this announcement that the show was being cancelled and there was nothing to kind of fill its place, there wasn't going to be a new late show, the US President Donald Trump took to social media to kind of revel in the news, and he warned that Kimmel is next.
I'm not afraid of Trump's threats. Worst case, they'll just fire me. After Stephen got fired, CBS actually said it was to cut costs and had nothing to do with anyone else. Oh my God, Mr. President, the thing you care about most every day is a late night host rambling at 1 a.m. I'm so touched, I almost want to send you an autographed photo of myself.
Could that really happen?
So Kimmel works for ABC, and that's a Disney company. So it's a completely different organization. Kimmel's contract is up next year. So in theory, he could walk away. My personal theory is that I don't think he will, because I think in the middle of this second Trump administration, he doesn't want to succumb to the pressure of walking away and then giving Trump what he wants, which is then Kimmel being off the air. Like, I could see him wanting to stay at least through the end of this administration. And he has a really good deal. He gets off the entire summers. He has a bunch of guest hosts that partake in his show. So I can't see him leaving. Of course, there's, it's the only person we'll know is Kimmel. But for now, I don't think he's as close to leaving as Trump might think that he is.
Do you think Trump could have any sway of making him leave or cancelling a show? That's kind of what people have been saying online.
I don't. I don't see how that's possible. I mean, I think that the political influence that was in the Colbert case had more to do with the sale of CBS and Paramount than anything else. And I given that it's a different company and there's no current sales, I don't see that being an issue. One of the things Colbert talked about on his shows this week was the Rupert Murdoch and Fox and their sales and how that influenced, or it could be potentially influenced by Trump. So I think when you're talking about business dealings and the president being involved in that, that's something. But for him to force a network to remove a host off a show, I think would be beyond his executive power.
Now, you mentioned there's still 10 months to go until Colbert's show is off the air, I guess you could say. And he did say in one of his most recent episodes after the announcement that to Donald Trump that the gloves are off and to go F yourself. Do you think there is any chance the show could be saved?
I don't think so. I think that there's a chance that Colbert could find a new path for himself to have a show. So whether that's on Netflix or YouTube or one of the paid streaming services, I don't think he's done having a voice in late night. But as far as that show, I'm pretty sure that the decision is final. And for CBS to go back on that decision now would make them look weak. And a lot of these companies don't want to look that way.
John, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you.
That was John Schneider, late night TV expert and host of Saturday Night Network, speaking with me there from New York. And that's it for this episode of The Briefing. Before you go, though, if you could share this app with someone else you think might enjoy it as well, that's a really easy way you can support everything we do here at The Briefing. And you can check out our Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Helen Smith. See you next time.
Listener.